Hello! In this video, I would like to introduce you to EssentiaTD. This is a chop suite consisting of 5 operators for TouchDesigner, and this allows you to do high-level audio analysis in real time or in batch mode. This is something I was missing from TouchDesigner for a very long time, and I have finally made a family so that it's available for everybody, and it's simplified so that you basically connect and you get all the data without necessarily doing much more. I am very happy to say that now we are in a stable release. This is version 2.0, and it has numerous upgrades from previous version, which was 1.8. So I recommend you to, if you're already using this, to please go ahead and download version 2.0, which is this stable one. How to download it? So this is an open source project. You can simply go to this repository and download everything for free. And there's many different ways of installation. The simplest one you can do, so you don't have to build anything from source, is just to go here. You have 2 installers, one for Windows and one for Mac. Download the appropriate one and run the installer, and it will just install like any other program. Something that may happen is that your security system in Windows or in Mac will say that it's not from a trusted developer. So you need to bypass that and accept anyways. That is because these installers are not signed, since that requires some payments, and I don't think I'm going to do that since this is an open source project. So you will have to just trust me that this is not malware, and I promise you what they are doing is simply installing in Windows in the right location, which is this one, and on Mac in this other location. So that's where the plugins will live. This does it automatically and saves a lot of the pain of having to do it by hand. A lot of people were struggling that when I first released these beta versions in the past. So now it's much more simple, just install it like that. Something to keep in mind is that once you have installed, or before you install, you have TouchDesigner closed, and then reopen it when it has completed so that it can recognize the plugins. Otherwise, it will not see them. So now, let me show you how this works. This is the Essentia tester patch, and this is available for free on my Patreon. You can go ahead, subscribe for free, and download this if you want. If you don't want to do that, I will briefly show you how to connect things before explaining this part. So let's go ahead here. Since this is audio analysis, you will need, of course, some audio source. I'm going to choose a sample, just some sample that we have from the stock files from TouchDesigner. You know this, it's a very famous track now. So let me put the volume down so you remember what it is. Okay, so the next thing we will do, and this is different from all the previous versions and it has been simplified, is that in the past you had to put a spectrum chop or Essentia spectrum chop before any other analysis. This is not anymore the case. I have simplified that because I realized that not everybody is familiar with DSP, that's digital signal processing, and you're required to have some knowledge to make the best out of these tools. So to make it simpler for everybody and to not have to think about sample rates, buffer sizes, what is optimal in which case, I decided that each operator does its own FFT. So it is not anymore required that you do a spectrum. Now you connect all this directly to your audio source. That is a major difference, and that is something that is different from the past, right? So you need to make sure now just to plug it directly. So let's start with loudness. Loudness is easy to understand. It measures some loudness in dBs. This is actually LUF, so this is a standard way of determining how loud a sound is. You get some other information that is very useful, like RMS, the root mean square. This is good for envelope following, or zero crossings, which can help you to detect onsets, things like that. Then we have the rhythm. Rhythm basically extracts the rhythm from a track. It tries to find the BPM and other information. So once you connect it, you will see that you get a warning. The warning says that it's analyzing channel 0 only. This is very much on purpose, and the reason is that if it will analyze both channels, then you will have a lot of channels here for certain operators, like the spectrum, a spectral operator that has a lot of information. And most of the time, you don't really need 2 channels. You just need a summation of both. So this assumes that that's what you're going to do. So you can either do it by adding both. So combining the channels, you can add them and then multiply them by half. Then you have basically all the audio information you need, and then you can plug it to your analysis. This, of course, you can leave it here. So it's the audio, clean audio. And that's more or less how you will tend to work. This is the normal way of doing this kind of analysis, where you just need basically the general information and you don't really care about left and right. Okay, so now you can see that what this operator is doing is giving you the onsets. So that means when something is basically triggering, then you have the strength of the onset, the BPM estimation of this track, and then you have a beat pulse, the beat phase, and a confidence as well. And here you can see how accurate this is. So we are going to turn it on. So it's pretty accurate for this track. There's many other things you can do here that I encourage you to check out, but by default it will work out of the box pretty well with most tracks that have noticeable rhythm, of course. Now let's see. We have the spectral. This is perhaps the most complicated one to understand. And the spectral one has all these parameters and many more, which are here. This is the most advanced by far. And if you want to learn more about it, I will encourage you to just go to the interactive guide here in the repository. The interactive guide has information about every single parameter, what it does, and I update it with changes too, so you can read here all about every single operator and every single parameter in detail. So please do that before you tweak things, because this is a bit more complex. It has MFCC analysis, it has the MEL bands for you to infer, for example, timbre. Something that is the simplest to understand is perhaps the spectral centroid. This will tell you around what frequency your track is. So this is the easiest to understand perhaps from this. But you can do now spectral analysis with this. Okay, let's see now about the tonal. Tonal basically extracts information about pitch. So here you will have a pitch expressed in hertz, the confidence of that, and you will have also the note names right here. So you're familiar with music notation, so C, C sharp, D, etc. You also have a key expressed in numbers from all those tones, and then you have the mode, major and minor, strength, how dissonant it is, how inharmonic it is. Bear in mind that this of course works best if you have a track that is tonal by nature. For example, a piano piece or a symphony. It will not work so well with a techno track that maybe has one monotonous tone or has no tones, not discernible tones at all. So every tool has its own use case. Don't expect that it will work absolutely out of the box for everything. You need to prepare your workflow. That is what this file demonstrates later on. And finally, we have the spectrum itself. And the spectrum is basically equivalent in some way to the built-in audio spectrum that TouchDesigner has. So if you see them both, they're pretty similar in this time to magnitude and phase. However, I'm not sure if this is a bug. It looks like that to me for the audio spectrum. You don't get proper phase information for these bands, and this one from the Essentia library does. And I also have a different range for the spectrum, which is normalized. It's not like in the TouchDesigner one. So this gives you a different, and I think looks more correct. I'm not sure if this really is a bug. I need to talk with them about it. I'm not sure, but I'm sure that this one is correct. So now you can do this clean spectrum and get also the phase completely for all the bands. All right, so that covers the 5 operators from EssentiaTD. Here you go. Now let me walk you briefly through the second part of this demonstration, which is the built-in file with all the testing that you can download for Patreon. So in here I have 2 files, 2 tracks, the same track that you just listened, which is this, and the other track is a piece from Bach, a piano piece, well, technically an organ piece transcribed for piano. And here I will show you the use cases for both of them. So for the beats, you already saw. And here what I did is a visualization that is a bit more clear than just looking at the signals. Here you can see the beat, how you can use directly this information. And here we extract, it says here extract beats. It should say extract loudness. Okay, so here you have some trails. Here you have some spectral information about the track and some visualization of the musical notes. So in this case, because this track is really about beats, not so much about tone, you can see that this information is not super strong. However, if we go for a track that has tones, like a piano piece, now you can see clearly how the notes light up, and they are following exactly what the piano is doing. So if you have, for example, perfect pitch, you can immediately know that this is correct. Okay, basically this shows you that you need to choose the right tool for the right job, obviously, and you might need to tweak things for each track that you want to extract information from. Here I give you some basic rules of thumb of how to do that and what is important to consider. And finally, I said that each operator runs in two modes, so real-time and batch mode. So if you notice, if you see any of the operators, for example, rhythm, then you have here modes, real-time and batch. So real-time is what we have been doing so far, which is just plug and play. But you can also just simply load a file, like for example this file, and in the file, or the file can be passed to the operators, and then in batch mode you can just compute it, and it will compute all the loudness, all the information that we saw, the BPM, the confidence, the bands, everything, but it will do it offline. So this is in a way more accurate than real time because it can do it offline. And basically then in this example what I'm doing is just using a timer to drive through that with a lookup. So you have the information. If you want to play this in an installation, for example, then you can get the information passing through the sample from beginning to end. So this is one use case of this mode. But of course, you can do a lot of other things with offline analysis for your purposes. I hope this gives you an overview of what EssentiaTD. This just scratches the surface. I am planning to do a lot of more in-depth tutorials and explanations, and also networks with ready-to-use things for people who are in the Patreon. Keep an eye for that. And like I said, since it's an open source project, it benefits always from your help. So if you encounter any issues, please go here to the issues and report what you have found. It's very simple. Just go to issues, and here you have a space where you can say new issue and then just type what's wrong, describe it, and I will look at it right away. Thank you very much for looking at this. I hope you enjoy EssentiaTD, and I'm curious to see what you do. Looking forward to that. Bye-bye.